Okay, guys, exciting time of week, right? We've got conference championships getting ready to start here tomorrow for the big power conferences. ACC's got a couple of games in action today, mid-major tournaments. We've got championships, all sorts of great things happening. But is there more value this week? Is there more value in the tournament? Like, where can we make the money? And nobody better to ask than, of course, Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. And Ralph, I know you've mentioned this to me in the past, but a lot of value here over these, pre-March Madness tournament, the Big 64. These championship tournaments can offer us some opportunities, can't they?
There's no question. When you get to March Madness, you have 68 teams and 64 after those two play-in days where everyone knows everything about those teams. There is no hidden value. Right now on Friday, for example, or on Saturday, we're going to have 18 conferences playing games.
Oof.
Many of those teams playing multiple days, many of those teams having injury situations or teams being tired playing overtime games, many situations where you're playing at night one day and in day the next. So if you could find situations you like, find teams that you follow and know more than Vegas does, there's no question about that on some of these smaller conferences. Much more value with this conference tournament week upcoming.
Love this. All right, now let's talk a little strategy before we dive into a couple of these tournaments in a few games. Strategy from the standpoint, Ralph, if I'm a bettor, right, and I haven't really spent a whole lot of time watching college basketball all season long, can you point us in the right direction of maybe some of the things that we should be looking for? Do you concentrate on totals? I mean, do you concentrate on ridiculous favorites? Is there a way to go about this?
Well, the thing you have to remember is these are conference tournaments, so the teams are very familiar with each other. They're playing each other at least a second time, sometimes a third time. The one thing I want to point out, and we're going to hear this 100 times in the next few days, it's hard to beat a team a third time. Well, I'll tell you what, against the spread in the last 10 years, it's exactly 50%. There is no difference one way or the other when analyzing a team that has double revenge. The better team usually does win. Yes, that's the case. So it's not hard to beat a team third time. If the teams are evenly matched, it's sometimes unlikely, but by no means base your bet on a double revenge situation. The other thing is look at conference stats. Because if you're looking at year-to-date stats, some teams have played very difficult non-conference schedules. Some teams have played very easy non-conference schedules. So those things aren't comparable. So when you're looking at conference-only stats, and that's part of the reason I put them in the Wager Talk College Basketball Guide, you can look at year-to-date conference-only points per game, rebounds per game, and turnovers per game to give you an idea. And lastly, don't fall into the trap of where the seedings are. Some teams played very well early and poorly late, and some played the reverse. Look at how those teams are in current form, and not necessarily just because they're a number 9 or 10 seed, you think they have no chance to win. One example in the Big East is Butler is actually the number 9 seed in that tournament, but I have them as the number 5 power-rated team, so you're getting value in that situation. So, again, the seeding is something the conference tournament does based on record. More important is current form of a team as you're looking at them.
Love this. Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, and you guys are in luck because today Ralph happens to be the $2 handicapper at WagerTalk.com, which means you go to WagerTalk.com right now, you go to the Cal Sports page, and for $2, Ralph, you've got your play tonight, a game that you've got circled available for $2?
Top play on a nice 15-6 run in college basketball. We talked a few weeks ago, I was on an uneven run. Thankfully, that has turned around, as it usually does when we get to these conference tournaments in March Madness. So very happy that I'm on a nice run, a strong play today. It is on ESPN tonight. If you're going to watch it, you might as well win it for $2. WagerTalk.com.
Love that. Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, where you guys got to go. Also follow him on Twitter at CalSportsLV. And Ralph, I got to ask you, it's funny. You've said this all year long, coming on the show, talking college hoops. You talk to me tempo and you talk to me pace, right? And I don't think this rang in my head last night as I'm watching St. Mary's play. And, of course, St. Mary's and Gonzaga going at it again today. But, man, St. Mary's is one of the slowest damn teams in the world. And usually when we've got slow-tempo teams, that usually means we have low totals, right? And given all that we know about these conference championships, it's a gruel for a lot of these teams. I mean, it's a grind. You're talking 3 or 4 games in 5 days. All of a sudden, you got slow-tempo teams. Should we be concentrating on the unders when it comes to teams like St. Mary?
Well, as you said, St. Mary's is by far one of the slowest teams. 353 teams in Division I, and St. Mary's, I believe, off the top of my head, I don't have that in front of me, is about 345. So I think there are 7 or 8 teams slower than them. And what that means is simply this. St. Mary's has an efficient offense. When they shoot the ball, they make their shots. But there's certain teams that run down and shoot the ball within 10 seconds. St. Mary's usually lets 20 seconds run off that clock, going into their plays, going into their motion, and running those plays. So, again, there's a difference between being an efficient offense and a bad offense and being a slow-tempo team. Like you said, when you get to the St. Mary's situation, you have a unique situation where you have a double-digit dog as with a small line. That's usually a very beneficial thing to play with the underdog, but in tonight's game, if we're going to mention it, I am not one that would go against Gonzaga. They are just so strong right now. They are clearly the best team in the conference. I don't have a play in that game either way, but we should mention, since it is a conference tournament game, if you blindly played every conference tournament final since 2005, you are 188 and 136, 58%.
Oh, damn.
If the total is 140 or less, you are now 116 and 70, 62.4%. And in the last 9 years, you've never had a losing season. So, it's a situation to look at. If you get to the finals, and because it's on ESPN, and ESPN shows almost all the finals, if not all of them, on one of their channels, and you don't have something to play and you want to play it, just basically play the unders. And why? You mentioned it. Multiple days in multiple games in multiple days. Well, defense intensity, you can play defense if you're tired. Jump shooters have a tough time shooting the ball with tired legs. And what is this game of college basketball now? It's simple. You drive, you pass it out to the three-point, they shoot the three-pointer, they make it or miss it, you run back down, you shoot the other way. College basketball has changed so much in the last few years that when you have these teams playing multiple days, again, you have tired legs. Also, as we mentioned, you are playing a team a second time or a third time, maybe a 6th time in 2 years. Well, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, you know who their shooters are. You know what adjustments you can make on defense to try to stop them. All those things lend in to almost 6 of 10 of the games going under the total over the last 9 years.
Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com. One of the other theories, Ralph, that I've heard over the years is how for the first day, like the very first round, right, of tournament games, usually what happens is the underdogs maybe have a little bit more valuable than they normally would, especially the bigger, the ones that have 8, 9, 10 double digits, going against them that they're getting. Sometimes it's because the public overrates the better team, right? The better record, the Dukes, the North Carolinas of the world. The public loves them. They just think they're going to beat everybody. So sometimes those big underdogs, there might be some value in the very first game in the very first round.
Well, no question. And, I don't know if as much as the public as the teams play differently. When you are a 1 seed and you're playing a double-digit seed and you're a 17-point favorite, for example, what happens in the second half? You have a significant lead. You're playing tomorrow. You are starting to rest your starters. You are not playing as intense at defense. And you know that you are going to win this game. The margin doesn't matter. You have to advance. and your goal is to win, at that point, you change your goal. Your goal is to not to win this game. Your goal is to get through this game with a victory, which is going to happen, and have the freshest and best possible team you can have for the next day. So coaches are looking in advance when they get those big second half leads, so you don't have teams stretching the margin. In fact, you normally have the underdog continue to playing hard, leaving their starters in to play sometimes their final game of the season and cut the margin or make it closer than the game would be in a regularly scheduled conference game.
I've got one that I had circled on here coming up on the 14th in a couple of days, like East Carolina getting 14 at Wichita State. We know Wichita State's the better team. There's no question about that. But here we are, 14-point, and East Carolina. And like you said, what happens? What's Wichita State going to do in the second half here of this game if they're already blowing them out? I mean, they know they're going to move on, so there might be some value in getting 14 points with an East Carolina.
Yeah, well, East Carolina is a team that has played well at home and tough on the road, and that is one thing you do want to pay attention to. You know, when I'm looking at stats, when I'm handicapping games, all I look at as far as shooting percentages go are teams that shoot well away from home. And let me just give you a quick example. You know, I just tweeted out now that when you're looking at teams that shoot well on the road, there are only 8 teams in college basketball that shot over 48.5% or better away from home. Wow. Gonzaga shot 53%. They're in the finals tonight. Georgia Southern shot 50.5%. They're the number 3 seed in the Sun Belt, and a team I think can easily win the Sun Belt tournament. Montana was the number 1 seed in the Big Sky. Tennessee at 49.4%, the number 3 seed in the SEC. South Dakota State's the only one that's out. They shot 48.8% with Mike Dahm. They lost in the first round. That was a shocker. Murray State shot 48%. They already won the Ohio Valley Conference as a number 2 seed. Liberty, 48.5%. They knocked off Lipscomb. They already won the Atlantic Sun as the number 2 seed. And Dayton is the other team in that mix. So when you are looking at these, there are times that, you know, Wichita State's another one of those teams that hasn't played as well on the road. We'll see where the line's going to be in that game. But clearly, that is something that I look at that I agree with you totally that when you find those double-digit dogs that can slow the tempo and shoot close to the same percentage, it's a great play in the first round.
Ralph Michaels, wagertalk.com. $2 capper. Now would be the time for you guys to get over there, get Ralph's play of the night. And also while you're there, check it out. You can have Ralph working for you the entire time during the conference championships, during March Madness, during the NIT. You heard him say it. A lot of value here, but you guys got to know where you're looking and what you're doing. And Ralph is a guy you definitely want to have in your corner. And we talked a little bit about the ACC starting tonight, Ralph. And, of course, Wake Forest, Miami, as of taping right now, just finished up. Miami ended up winning 79-71. I believe the game went off as Miami an 8-point favorite, so this is kind of a push situation for those that ended up laying the points with Miami and Wake Forest. So Miami advances, Wake Forest kind of banged up. It's been a rough year. What happens now moving on? You got Notre Dame, Georgia Tech also happening tonight there in the ACC. Pittsburgh's playing a little bit later. What do you like about the ACC? What do you like about tonight?
Well, you know, one thing to look at is, do teams want to win the tournament? And you might think that's just an automatic. Well, hell yeah, if any team's in the tournament, they want to win the tournament. But that's the farthest thing from the truth. We've seen it in the ACC. We've seen it in the Big Ten. Duke is a number 1 seed. It doesn't matter what they do. If they're going to be a number 2 seed, so what? It doesn't matter to them if they're a 1 or a 2 seed. Duke hasn't won that tournament in years, but yet they're still to win. They're not even favored to win the ACC this year, yet they're the overwhelming favorite to win the national championship. Why? Because Coach K doesn't care to win there. When you're playing 3 or 4 games in 4 days, a lot of times those coaches don't worry about giving the full effort now. They'd rather take those extra couple days of rest, make sure no one gets injured, Move forward to your goals those first Thursday or Friday games and make sure you're ready to play then. But in the ACC, again, I think Virginia, being the number 1 seed, being that they won it last year, being that the way that they got knocked out, they got the most to prove. You know, if otherwise, besides Virginia, my long shot would be Louisville, the number 7 seed. They're a team that, you know, I love Coach Mack from Xavier. I love what he's done there. They don't have the talent of those other teams, but they play good enough offense, good enough defense. You know, they're going to play the winner of the Georgia Tech Notre Dame game. Then they play North Carolina, and then they would have to play Duke or Syracuse, whoever advances from there. So they have a very tough road. But if I had to pick a long shot in there, it would be, again, I think Virginia would win, but then the 7 seed Louisville would be my my upset pick.
Keep an eye out there. Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, joining us. Also, one of the better conferences all year, Ralph, the SEC, and we've talked about it all year long. LSU. What do you do with a team like LSU? Coach has all of a sudden now been suspended. You've got these kids who, what does it affect them? Does it not affect them? When you're breaking down the SEC championship, what do you like there? You like the favorites? Is there a long shot, somebody in there that you'd look at?
You know, well, LSU won the regular season conference, but they are not the favorite. The favorite is Kentucky, and Kentucky deserves to be the favorite. You look at what Calipari's done there. They've been in the finals, I think, each of the last 7 or 8 years, and they've won it each of the last 3 years. Unlike Coach K, Coach Calipari does want to win this tournament. He feels it's very important. Now, you know, you have a situation where Kentucky started off slow. They had 4 players get drafted in the NBA. It took them a while to get to where they are playing in their normal Kentucky Wildcat fashion. Now, they do have an injury late. Reed Travis, the Stanford transfer who's played center for them all year, has missed the last 3 or 4 games. He should be back. If he's back in time for that first or second game of the tournament, I think Kentucky comes out and wins this. If not, I'm going to pick the number 5 seed, Auburn. And it's simply for this reason. They get a very favorable bracket. Now, here's one of those scheduling situations we talked about. On Wednesday, Missouri plays Georgia. That's the number 12 and 13 seed. They play at 7 p.m. at night. The winner of that game has to play Auburn at 2:30. So less than 24 hours later, in fact, less than 20 hours later, you're turning around and playing a very fast-paced team, and I think that's where Auburn has the advantage. Auburn is also on the side of the bracket with LSU, the number 1 seed, and not only is Will Wade, their head coach, suspended, Javonte Smart, the player involved in the scandal, is also suspended, so they're missing one of their significant pieces. The other is the number 4 seed, South Carolina, and I don't know if this has ever happened before, where a 4 seed to one of the major conferences will not make the tournament unless they win. South Carolina was horrible in the non-conference. They went 5-8. And while they are the number 4 seed, they will not make the tournament. And so when you have a 4 seed, you probably think in your head, this 4 seed is an NCAA tournament team. But they're not. So you have the LSU team and the South Carolina team ahead of you, where I think Auburn can easily go to the finals against Kentucky or Tennessee. So, you know, I still pick Kentucky to win. You're about 3 hours away to see that Kentucky Blue up in Nashville where this tournament is. But it's something that you clearly have to look at. And again, even though South Carolina is a 4 seed, I would have them a 15-point underdog against the 3 seed in this tournament.
Wow. Damn.
I have Auburn, a 9-point favorite, a 5 seed. If Auburn plays South Carolina, I would make Auburn a 9-point favorite against that seed. So again, another situation where don't look at seedings. They mean very little. Yes, it's a general synopsis of the conference. But when my 5 seed is going to be a 9-point favorite against the 4 seed, that tells you how careful you have to be when looking at those seedings.
Wow. Ralph Michaels, WagerTalk.com, joining us here. And Ralph, tonight, interesting, you got some mid-major championships. We talked about St. Mary's, Gonzaga. Miami and, of course, Wake Forest just played. Is there a game tonight that you like that you're pointing at?
I do. I like Wright State. I do like the Raiders. Scott Nagy has his team. This is for the Horizon Championship against Northern Kentucky. And Wright State is a team that last year, won the Horizon League. They know how to win. They know how to get there. Winning and getting there is important. They lost to Tennessee in the first round, but Northern Kentucky is a team that hasn't played as well down the stretch. I look at Northern Kentucky and, they lost home against Cleveland State. They lost on the road to Wright State by 4. That was a good game. On the road, they finished up with Milwaukee and Green Bay. And they had an easier stretch getting here, but yet they still struggled against Detroit and Oakland, including only a 1-point win at the buzzer last night. So Wright State is playing incredible defense. It's one of those situations where if you look at their stats year to date, you're not going to be that impressed with them. If you look at Wright State over the last 7, 8, or 9 games, you're going to see just how well they are playing. They take care of the ball. They have 4 upperclassmen. They have 1 sophomore who plays center. They have a senior and a junior guard combo. Wright State gets it done. That game was about pick'em against Northern Kentucky tonight for the Horizon League title. And they'll probably be, I would say, Wright State would probably be a 10 or 11 seed if they win to get to the tournament.
Love that. Wright State tonight. Also, make sure you get to wagertalk.com. $2 capper today. Get Ralph's pick tonight. $2. Wagertalk.com. Follow on Twitter at CalSportsLV. And Ralph, we appreciate talking to you as usual. Thursday, big night, of course, big day. We'll talk to you on the morning show. Make it rain. We'll get you up and bright and early there from Vegas. He'll join us then. And a lot of opportunities this weekend to be profitable, but it starts with getting Ralph in the corner here and heading over to wagertalk.com. He is the $2 capper today. Go get his play for $2. Ralph, appreciate your time as always, my friend. We will talk to you on Thursday.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.